Guys, happy Thursday. We are back with Talking Social, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to plug in my microphone here, so hopefully you guys can hear me a little bit better. Got this stupid thing so that I would use it, and then I constantly forget to actually use it. So I'm trying to commit to using it. So if you guys are watching live, let me know if the volume is okay. Let me just make sure. Let's see here. Can't seem to check my audio. You know what? Be on the safe side. We're gonna not use the microphone today. It makes me so nervous. I can't tell if it's working or not, and that drives me crazy. So we're just gonna skip. We're gonna skip it for today, and it'll be totally fine. I also forgot to put lipstick on, so clearly it has been that type of week. All right, well, let's get to it today. To today's topic. So last week I did not do a Talking Social episode because I was running a 5-day live series all about Facebook ads, which is one of my favorite topics to talk about, as I'm sure you realized after 5 days of my live streaming about it. I skipped over Talking Social in favor of doing that 5-day live stream about Facebook ads, which was all about how to get started with Facebook ads, why Facebook ads can be so useful. And if you guys didn't catch it, I updated my cover photo this morning. I put out a new free roadmap to help you determine if you've got a strategy behind your Facebook ads that are going to make sure that they deliver you the results that you want. So one of the things we talked about during that live series I ran last week was the fact that you don't ever want to run ads from a place of desperation, right, where you're trying to save a launch or a product or something like that. You don't want to run them just because. You need to make sure that you have some sort of strategy behind your ads, because if you're running them either from a place of desperation, you're running them just because, or you just skip over that strategy piece for whatever reason, it's setting yourself up for a major failure with Facebook ads. Facebook ads can be a great tool to help to generate consistent growth for your business, help to generate consistent revenue for your business, take your business to the next level. They can do all sorts of things, but they have to have that strategy behind them or they're not going to be successful. And what I see way too many people doing, and it just hurts, it hurts me to see this, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about Facebook ads, and one of the things that is not talked about often enough is that need to have the strategy behind it. And so people are boosting posts or running ads without taking the time to build out that broader strategy, and they're ending up frustrated with ads that don't work. They're blowing a huge budget on it as a result, and I just don't want for anybody to end up in that position, because it's totally avoidable. So that's what that new roadmap is. You guys can go click on my my cover photo. That will take you to this roadmap that I have put together that is really quick and easy to use. It shouldn't take you more than a minute or two to go through it to check to see if you've got the strategy that you need behind your ads to be able to set yourself up for success. So super quick and easy to use. Please, please, please make sure that you take the time to build the strategy behind your ads before you launch them, or you're not going to be pleased with the results. Okay, so that takes us to our topic for this week. And I'm talking about something a little bit different this week, and that is pivoting in your business. So this came up, I decided to do this topic because I am going through a pivot in my own business at the moment. And I wanted to share with others who maybe are considering a pivot or are in the midst of a pivot themselves. I wanted to share a little bit about things that can help you to understand whether or not it is time for you to pivot in your business, and then what you can do once you do decide to pivot to make sure that you don't lose your entire audience as you're undergoing that change, right? Now, some pivots are going to be more minor than others. Sometimes you pivot and it's just branching out into a new product or a new service, but staying within the same general area that you work in now, right? Sometimes pivots are much larger and it's about entirely transforming your business, doing something completely different, Sometimes a pivot is closing down your current business entirely and starting a totally new company. So pivots can take a lot of different forms and shapes, but there are ways to do it, whether it's a more minor pivot or an entirely new business. There are ways to do it without losing the existing audience that you have, because we all work so hard to build our Facebook page following, to build our Instagram following. I really want to give you guys some tips and tricks that are working for me as I'm going through a pivot to help make sure that if you end up going down the same road, that you are able to use those same tips and tricks to pivot in your own business and keep your audience engaged, because there is absolutely a way to do it successfully without having to totally start from scratch when it comes to your online presence. I'm so sorry, I've got a dog hair because with 3 dogs, there's just dog hair everywhere. Story of my life. So let's start out then by what I want to talk about first, you guys, is how I want to talk a little bit about why people pivot, and then what are some signs that you can look for that it may be time for you to consider a pivot in your own business. So I think, people pivot for different reasons. In my case, it was the decision to pivot was twofold. The first was that when I started my business, I thought I knew exactly what I wanted to focus on. And when I launched my company, I was really geared towards social media management, right? So I was going to manage social media accounts for small businesses. That was it. It wasn't until I actually started my business and started doing that I realized that I did not necessarily love just creating tweets for people as much as I thought that I would. But I also realized that, the reason I had wanted to do social media management was to help small businesses and entrepreneurs grow their presence online. And what I quickly found after I started my business was that it's not just about tweets, right? It's not just about part of it is about being consistent on social media, but there's so much more that goes into having a successful online presence and being able to grow your brand and your business online. It's not just about, putting out a few tweets, doing a few Facebook posts, showing up on Instagram every now and again. There's so much more that goes into having a digital and an online presence. And I really wanted to be able to help small business owners and entrepreneurs take that broader view and put together a broader strategy that's going to help them grow online. Because if you're just focused on, I've got to get my 5 tweets done today, I've got to do my Facebook post, I've got to do my Instagram post, you're not really showing up authentically, right? Because you're not showing up with a clear intent and a clear message. You're just doing it because you feel like you should. But you're also missing out on so many other pieces that go into a strategy to build your brand online. So that was kind of the first component of my decision to pivot, right, was that I realized that I didn't necessarily love just the hands-on management of social media accounts, and I wanted to be able to help people at a broader, more strategic level, because what I was really doing was very task and tactic oriented, and where I'm really going with my business now is far more focused on the strategic picture, right, and putting together a strategic plan to be able to build your digital presence online so that you can grow your business and grow your brand in the way that you want to. And I can't do that just purely through the management of social media accounts. Part of my decision to pivot as well came from the fact that I was kind of realizing as I got into running my company, the niche that I really wanted to focus on. And what I would say is, one of the things I see constantly when people are advising others who may be considering starting a business, it's always you have to figure out who your target audience is. And I totally agree with that. It is very important to understand who you intend to serve with your product or your service. But I think it can be hard to really hone in on who it is that you want to serve until you actually have a company that is up and running. I narrowed my space to small business owners and entrepreneurs, but it wasn't until I started working with clients and working in that space and building a brand and engaging with the community that I really realized that I wanted to work specifically with women entrepreneurs. I felt like that was the space where my skill sets are best aligned to be able to help others. My passions are best aligned to be able to help others. I feel very passionate about helping other women to build their own brands, build their own businesses so that they can reach the goals that they have for themselves. So that was another factor in my decision to pivot because, again, I wanted to be able to help women entrepreneurs build that whole strategy behind how they're going to grow their brand online and not just, hey, let's get you 50 new Twitter followers every week. So those were really the reasons that drove my decision to pivot. And again, I'm kind of in the middle of doing this pivot now, right? I'm doing a little bit of rebranding. There's lots of changes going on my website. I'm changing my Facebook group, which I have to make an announcement about, right? So there's a lot of things in flux, as there always is with a business. But people choose to pivot for all sorts of different reasons, right? People might pivot because the industry is changing and they realize that they need to change the products or the services that they provide if they're going to continue to be relevant. That's a really important one, I think, especially in today's world, because everything is just moving at the speed of light, that you've got to make sure that you're sort of constantly looking at what you are providing to your community, to your tribe, and analyzing whether or not you are still providing value, you're staying relevant. So I think that's something that's crucial for all of us to do, whether we are considering a pivot or not, right? We need to constantly be analyzing and looking at what we are providing and if it is still resonating with our community. People might pivot because they don't feel passionate anymore about what they're doing, right? That's sort of what influenced my decision to pivot. Not necessarily that I didn't feel passionate about the broader approach, but I did not feel a particular passion to pure social media management, right? Management of social media accounts. It could be, people could pivot because they need more time in their life or they need more money or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of different reasons that people pivot. The key thing is to be able to understand some of the signs that are an indicator that it's time for you to consider a pivot in your business, right? And a lot of these were things that I was experiencing, and it took me a lot of long walks and drinking coffee in the quiet, in the sunshine, right, to try to figure out why I was struggling with some of these things. And once you sort of realize, once you sort of know what to look for, and once you realize what they might be indicating, it makes it much easier to understand what's happening and to know what you have to do next, right? Which is to figure out, okay, I know that my current approach is not working. The products, the services that I'm providing are not what I want to be doing. I need to figure out what I am going to do next, right? And that's the conversation I had to have with myself. I wasn't in love with the pure management of social media accounts. What could I do? What could I change in my business so that I could get back to what caused me to be, or what helped me to feel so passionate about what I do when I first started my business, right? So for me, that is pivoting more towards the strategic approach. It's also pivoting to offer courses, because part of this too, I realized, is that I can only, as much as I would love to be able to clone myself, and if anybody has a cloning machine, please do let me know, because I will be happy to pay you for it. But as much as I would love to be able to do nothing but one-on-one client work, I have a limited amount of hours in the day, and there is only one of me to go around. So part of my decision to pivot too was the realization that if I wanted to be able to grow and scale my business in the way that I hope to in the coming years, I was going to have to find a way to reach more entrepreneurs without killing myself trying to do that, right? I couldn't really take on more one-on-one clients, so what could I do instead? I could offer courses, right? So that's also going into this pivot that I'm going through at the moment, is the decision that I'm going to move into that online course space and provide my expertise and my experience to other entrepreneurs online, because I can reach and help far more people through courses than I can through one-on-one work. I love the one-on-one work, but as anybody who does client-based work knows, it's incredibly time-consuming, and there are only so many hours that you have in the day. So for a lot of us who want to be able to scale, we've got to find other ways to be able to do that effectively. Okay. So let's talk then a little bit about some of the signs that you can look for that it's time for you to consider a pivot in your business. And again, a lot of these were things that I was experiencing and struggling with. They're not always an indication that you have to pivot, right? It could be an indication that maybe you're just overworked. But I think most of us, we're mature enough to know the difference between it being a situation where you're just working too much and you need to step back, and it being a situation where the passion and the drive that you had for what you were doing before is gone, and you need to consider how you're going to be able to bring that back in. So some of the things, and I put a little ebook together, you guys, that I will link to as soon as, actually, I may have the link. Let me just drop this into the comments in case anybody would love to grab it while we're, nope. All right, let me just grab this for you really quickly, you guys. I don't have it open. All right, I'll dump it into the comments as soon as we are done here. But I put together a little ebook that includes this checklist that I'm about to take you guys through of things to look for that's an indicator that it may be time to consider a pivot. It also has some of the recommendations that I'm going to share with you guys about how to pivot while still maintaining your audience. Okay, so some of the things to look for that it is time for you to consider a pivot in your business. You're tired all the time, right? Not only are you tired all the time, but maybe it's hard to get up in the morning. Those are both signs that the passion you may have once had for what you were doing is not there anymore for whatever reason. So feeling tired all the time, finding that it's hard to get up in the morning, and again, definitely some common sense factors. Right, I am not a morning person. No matter how passionately I feel about what I am doing, I am never going to love getting up in the morning because that's just who I am. But there's certainly a noticeable difference between I just don't like the mornings and don't want to be up because I haven't had any coffee yet, and getting up is hard because I don't want to have to do what I know I need to do today. You're not interested in your work, right? That is a clear sign that you have lost the passion and the drive that you had for what you were doing, and it's time to maybe take a step back and reevaluate. It's hard to find inspiration, right? If you feel really passionately about what you're doing, generally it's not hard to find inspiration. You're constantly coming up with new ideas and new things that you want to try or introduce or stuff that you want to launch, right? I'm now finding myself in that situation after making the decision to pivot in a different direction. Now my problem is more that I have too much inspiration and I don't have enough time to get everything that I want to get done immediately, right? So I'm having to figure out over the next year all of the things that I want to be able to do. It takes you much longer to complete projects than you do. If it feels like you're having to drag through everything that you're doing, that it's taking you forever, none of it is coming easy, and you're having to slog through each and every task on your list, that again is probably another clear indicator that you may just not be feeling the same passion and drive for what you're doing anymore. If you feel like you're working all the time, but you're not getting anywhere, this is definitely one that I was struggling with before I made the decision to pivot, right? It felt like I was constantly creating posts and getting things up online and responding to comments and questions that were coming in and retweeting and whatnot. But I felt like I wasn't really making forward progress. I was just reacting to what was happening, but it took so much time to do that I had nothing left over for the other things that I wanted to be able to do. Your clients and customers aren't happy. This is a big one, because if you are in love with what you are doing, if you love getting up every day, you love delivering value, you love the work that you are doing, that is going to automatically come through to your clients and customers, right? Because you're going to want to deliver an incredibly positive experience because you feel so passionately about what you do. But if your clients and customers aren't happy, there are many different reasons for that, but one of them could certainly be that you are not engaged with what you're doing anymore. You don't feel passionately about that, and that is either consciously or subconsciously coming through in the work that you are doing for your clients or your customers. So this is another one where, if you are dealing with dissatisfied or unhappy clients or customers, take a step back and think about whether this is from another issue, if this is stemming from another issue, or if this is because you just don't love what you are doing at the moment and you need to start thinking about how you could do something different or do things differently to bring that passion back. You're unmotivated. Another big one, right? If you don't feel the same drive, the same motivation that you once felt, it may be because you're not enjoying what you're doing anymore. And especially if you are an entrepreneur or a small business owner, right? It is all on you to keep your motivation up, to keep doing what you need to be doing, to keep hitting deadlines and delivering. So if you are not feeling motivated, there's no boss down the hallway that's coming down to kick you in the booty and get you back and running and up and motivated, right? It's on you. And that means that we've got to make sure that we're finding ways to consistently keep our motivation high, because there is nobody else who is going to do it for us. And there are days, you guys, certainly where no matter how much you love what you're doing, sometimes you're just going to sit in front of your computer or wherever it is that you do your work and you're going to be like, I just don't feel like doing it today, right? We all absolutely have those days. Maybe we're a little bit burned out. Maybe we're a little bit tired. Maybe the kids or the dogs were up all night long, whatever it might be. We all have those days on occasion where we're just not feeling it. But this is more of an extended period of lack of motivation, right? Maybe it's been a couple of weeks now and you're not feeling motivated and you're struggling to get through your to-do list. You're struggling to get started in the morning. That could definitely be a sign that it's time to consider a pivot, right? Maybe you've experienced an unexplained drop-off in revenue. This kind of ties in a little bit to clients or customers being unhappy, but again, it's all driven from the same problem, which is that if you don't feel passionately about what you are doing, especially as an entrepreneur or a small business owner, that is going to come through in everything that you do and make it difficult for you to grow your business, right? Because at the end of the day, we have to be our biggest advocates, because oftentimes, especially if you're a solopreneur, there is nobody else that is speaking on behalf of your business while you're getting up and running. You have got to push that incredibly heavy stone up the hill and be that constant voice and advocate for your business. And if you don't feel a passion and a drive about what you are doing, then how is anybody else going to feel that about your business, right? And if that's not coming through, then you're probably going to see a corresponding drop off in revenue at some point, right? Maybe not right away, depending on your business model, but ultimately that's certainly going to be a result of a loss of passion for what you are doing. Procrastination has become your very best friend. This was another one that I was struggling with, right? I'm definitely, I'll be the first person to admit, a procrastinator by nature. even though I love to plan and I love goals and I love to-do lists, I have always worked better under pressure. All of my best papers were written when I was coming up right on the deadline to deliver. So I'm a natural born procrastinator, but when I don't want to do something or I'm not feeling passionately about something, I hit a whole different level with my procrastination. And this is not just putting things off for a few days. This is just not doing what I need to do, period. So if you find that you're in a place where you are putting everything off or finding excuses to not have to do it or whatever it might be, that can definitely be a sign that you need to make a pivot in your business, right? And then there are a couple, so that takes us through sort of the checklist that I put together. And again, I'll make sure to link to this little ebook that I put together if you guys would like to go and grab that. But then there are a few questions that you can also ask yourself that I think can help you to determine whether or not you're at a place where you need to think about pivoting. Are you excited about your work? If you really love what you are doing, most days you're going to feel super jazzed about getting to work, right? It's when we're not enjoying what we're doing, we don't like where we're working, we don't like the work, that's when we get to that place of not feeling excited and just trying to skate by, right? But if you love what you're doing, you're going to be excited to show up every single day. Do you love what you are doing, right? These kind of go together. Are you excited about your work, and do you love what it is that you are doing? If your answers to those questions are yes, you're probably not at a point where you need to be pivoting, and I would highly recommend that you guys go do something more valuable with your time than watch me talking about pivoting in your business. Do you believe that you are adding value in the lives of your clients and customers? This was probably the one single question that helped me to understand that I was at a point where I needed to make some pretty big changes in my business, because I definitely, when I stepped back and I thought about this question, I absolutely felt like I was not delivering the best value that I could to my potential clients and customers. So this was a big one for me that helped in my realization that I needed to make some changes so that I could get back to a place where I really felt like I was helping my clients and customers to move in the direction that they wanted to move, to reach their goals, and really be able to get visible online. All right. So now that we've gone through some ways that you can determine if you're at a point where you need to pivot, let's talk a little bit about how you can make that pivot happen without losing your entire following, right? So this is for folks who are at a place where they know they need to make a change, right? They're not feeling motivated, they're not passionate about what they're doing, or maybe their current business model has become is no longer relevant and they want to make a change to make sure that they can stay relevant. Whatever it might be, you're in a place where you know that you need to make a pivot, you need to make a change. So how do you pivot without losing your whole audience? So there are 4 things that you can do that I am currently doing right now to help make sure that you keep your audience engaged. You don't lose them, whether you're making a minor change, right? Whether it's to introduce a new product or a new service offering, or you're making a major change where you're going in a totally different direction, right? Either with the business or you're launching a whole new business. The first thing, and probably the absolute best thing that you can do, you have to, and this is one that if you have not been doing it, it's going to be challenging to pivot successfully, to pivot in a way that doesn't lose your audience. You have to build a brand, not a business. A business is nothing more than an entity that sells things, right? We are anybody who sells something has some kind of business, but that's all that a business is, right? It is nothing more. And people might buy things on occasion from a business, but nobody feels a deep connection to a business. Nobody feels super passionately about a business. Nobody is going to run, home and tell all their mom and all their friends about a business, right? We don't feel a connection with a business. What we feel connections to are brands, right? If you think about companies that come immediately to your mind or companies that you have particularly strong feelings about, it is probably because they have done a very good job of building a brand, right? And especially in today's world, branding is incredibly important. It is the only way that you're going to be able to stand out in a very crowded marketplace. So you have to make sure that you are building up a brand that has a clear voice, a clear personality, a clear mission, right? That you are continually providing value to the audience that you are trying to reach, even if the way that you are providing that value today may change in the future. That is absolutely the number one thing that you can do to help make sure that when you decide to pivot, that pivot is going to be a success for you. If you have not taken the time to build up a recognizable brand, it's going to be really challenging to pivot. So even if you're at a point, right, where you're not planning to pivot right now, but maybe it's something that's on the horizon for you in the future, then definitely start spending your time and your energy building up that brand so that people love you, people follow you, people are engaged with you, because when people have that emotional connection, they're going to follow you to whatever you decide to do next. But if they're not invested in you in that way, then you're probably going to lose them as you start to make that change, right? So whether if you are in the midst of trying to make a pivot and you have not taken the time to build a brand, it's going to be a really tough transition for you. If you're not in a place where you want to pivot now, but you are thinking about that in a few months, in the next year, start focusing on brand building so that you can get people to engage with and follow you. And then when you decide to make that pivot, you're going to have that audience that wants to come along with you. All right, second thing you can do, be transparent. So I think oftentimes our natural inclination when we're going through a period of change is to hide, right? Or to pretend that it's not happening. But you guys, if you do that, especially as an entrepreneur or a small business, if you try to make a significant pivot and you're not forthcoming with your audience about it, especially if you have a social following, you're going to lose your followers because they're going to start noticing some changes that are coming out as a result of your planned pivot. And if you're not telling them about it, if you're not explaining to them what is happening, they're going to get confused and they're going to walk away from you. You know, there are so many other people and companies that we could be following in the marketplace today. So we've got to make sure that we are constantly being real and keeping our following engaged so that they will continue to follow us on our journey, right? So be transparent, be open about the change that is coming. Now, you don't have to give away, all of the intimate details about how this pivot is taking place or what exactly is involved, but let people know that this change is coming, right? So that they have time as well to adjust to the change that you are making. And in many cases, especially if you've taken the time to build that brand, they're going to be excited for you, right? They're going to be excited to see what's coming next for you. They're going to want to follow you into this new phase of your journey as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner. So don't shy away from sharing with your audience about the planned pivot, right? Let them know what it is that you are doing. Which takes me into the third thing that you can do to help make sure that you keep your followers engaged with you as you go through this pivot, and that is to tell your why story, right? Explain why you decided to make this pivot. It's exactly what I did in this video, right? I talked a little bit about what was going on and how I came to the realization that I needed to make the pivot, because it's really important that people understand what has driven this decision to change your business model, to change your business, to change your focus, your direction, whatever it might be, right? And that can be a really compelling story that can help to inspire others as well who might be thinking about making a pivot. You know, there may very well be other people out there who are in a similar place to where you are and aren't sure if they can pivot successfully or not. And you being transparent, telling your why, right, why you've decided to make this change might help them to feel more confident taking that same leap, right? Making a pivot in their own lives. So again, you know, don't shy away from letting people know that this change is coming to your business and to your life, and explain why you've decided to make this shift, because it also means that you control the narrative, right? If you are being proactive, you're being transparent, you're communicating to your audience and explaining why you're making these changes, you are controlling that narrative versus trying to hide it, trying to sweep it under the rug, not really mentioning it. Now you're going to lose control of that narrative, and it's going to be far harder to keep people engaged, to keep people following you. Focus on the positives. This is the last one. And this is another one where, you know, it's really about how you manage this time of change in your business and in your life, right? Pivoting can be a really great Kickstarter to some awesome growth for you, but it's all about how you approach it and how you manage that time while you are in transition. So as you are communicating about this pivot, about this change, really focus on the positive aspects of it, right? How is this helping you to grow? How is this helping your business to grow? How is this helping you to reach your goals? What positive impact is it having on your life as a whole? Right? You want to be open, you want to be honest, but you also want to make sure that you demonstrate the value that this is going to bring to you, but also to your potential audience, right? One of the big reasons I decided to pivot is because I felt like I was not delivering the best value that I could to my clients and customers. And by making the planned pivots that I'm going through now, I feel like I'm going to be much better positioned to really help the audience that I want to help. So, you know, that's a big driving factor behind my own pivot, is that I want to be able to provide my audience with more value. So focus on the positive aspects of why you're making this change and of how it's going to bring more value to your audience, how it's going to help you reach your goals. All right, guys, so that is it for today, right? We talked about why people pivot. I told you a little bit about my journey going through a pivot right now while working to keep my audience engaged. I gave you a quick checklist, and I'll make sure to link to that little free ebook that I put together, but I gave you a quick checklist, right, that you can use to help determine whether or not you are at a place where you need to consider a pivot, and then talked about some strategies that you can use within your own business as you go through a pivot within your business to make sure that you can keep your following engaged, because we work so hard to grow our audiences, whether it's our email list, our Instagram following, our Facebook followers, right? You want to make sure that you can take them with you into the next phase of your journey as a small business owner or an entrepreneur. All right, so that is it for today. I'm going to wrap it up there. I will drop the link to the ebook as soon as we wrap up. I did want to make a quick note, you guys. One of the things I am doing in September, so I have set some monthly goals for myself, and one of them is to live stream every single day. They're not all going to be 40 minutes long like this one is, but I do really want to commit to showing up live every single day. So I hope you guys will hold me accountable to that. Make sure that I am showing up every day, but also let me know what you guys want to hear about, right? What are you struggling with when it comes to being visible online? Are you having challenges growing? Oh, you can see our husky's tail in the background. Are you having challenges growing your Instagram following? Are you struggling to figure out how to implement a sales funnel? Are you not sure what it means when people talk about having a brand? brand, right? Tell me what it is that you're struggling, that you want to hear more about, and I'll make sure that I incorporate that into my planned live streaming schedule, because that is what we are all about here at Couch Digital Strategies, is making sure that I'm helping you guys with the issues that you are having when it comes to growing your business online. So you can drop me a DM, you can leave a comment on this video, or leave a comment on the post I'll be doing tomorrow, letting everybody know that I'm going to be doing this live streaming thing every day. Let me know what it is that you want to hear more about, that you want to learn how to do, or that you are struggling with, so we can cover that this month. All right, guys, thank you so much, as always, for tuning in to Talking Social. I will see you same time, same place next week, and you'll be seeing me showing up a lot in your feed this month as I go live every single day. Okay, have a great Thursday evening.